Here we go, Zach.
And welcome in everyone to this week's episode of Craze's Corner. We're going to be breaking down a bunch of different things tonight. We got a couple news stories, a big trade in our main Dynasty League that we're going to talk about here between me and Zach. We've also got some guys who we're trying to buy low on currently, guys we want on our roster before the trade deadline comes upon us, and the one guy we want to trade away. A guy maybe you don't want to hold on to all season. They might just end up clogging up a roster spot, or a guy that maybe you want to capitalize on their value. But first, we got a few news stories to get into. The first news story is Kenny Pickett is going to be the starting quarterback for the Pittsburgh Steelers going forward. He took over after halftime, had 2 rushing touchdowns and 3 interceptions. I read a stat that he had the most pass attempts without an incompletion ever throughout any game, 13. He had 3 picks, 10 completions. So that's kind of something, he's maybe he's just the best quarterback of all time. We'll just have to wait and see. The next news story is that Jonathan Taylor did not play on Thursday night. He's out with his ankle injury. There was a chance he could have played, but they decided to rest him on a short week. Hopefully he will be back next week, and if not, he'll definitely be back the week after. It's just a low ankle sprain, not too worried. And the third story is with the absence of Javonte Williams for the Broncos. They have brought in Latavius Murray off the Saints practice squad. He played fairly well last week. Now they bring him in to pair with Melvin Gordon and Mike Boone. I think Latavius Murray is going to get some of the red zone work. We've seen Gordon struggle with fumbles, especially at the goal line in week 1. He couldn't hold on to the ball. So I think this is a place that Murray can come in and excel. I think that makes him more fantasy relevant than Mike Boone. So he's the guy I prefer out of that backfield other than Melvin Gordon, because I think he'll still be the bell cow. But I want to know who you guys think is going to be the RB1 for the Broncos rest of season. You can let us know using the Media app. The Media app is a virtual press conferencing app that allows you to host a virtual press conference from your phone. The new version of the app is out. You can get it on the App Store. It allows you to replace your background with logos, with whatever you want. It's extremely great. You can post it to any social media platform as well as uploading it in the app. Very easy to use, so I definitely recommend you go check that out. You make a press conference letting us know who you think the Broncos' number 1 running back is going to be rest of season. Post it on Instagram and tag me or tag Media, and we'll definitely make sure to check it out and respond. So go check it out. It's available on both the Google Play and the App Store. And now let's welcome in our guests. We have Zach, Jeff, and Will. Thanks for joining, guys.
Hey, what's happening?
We got a couple quick questions before we get into our trade candidates. So let's go. First start, who do you guys think the number 1 running back for the Broncos is going to be? Is Melvin Gordon going to be able to hold on to this job? Or are we going to see someone else take it? Jeff, we'll start with you, and we'll go around the circle. Who do you think it's going to be?
Well, you got Melvin Gordon that can't hold on to the ball and Mike Boone that can't catch. So Latavius Murray. And he actually didn't look that bad playing for the Saints. That's why I was like, wait a minute, how the hell didn't he just play for the Saints? How did this happen? So yeah, he's the guy that usually steps up and they just say, you know what, go ahead and we're going to play everything after you. He's done it for the Ravens. He's done it for the Vikings. Now he's going to do it for Denver. And plus, I picked him up, so I'm hoping that happens.
Yeah, I picked him up. I put more money on him than I did on Boone. I think he's, like I said, I think he's going to get that red zone work, and I think that's the biggest part in an offense that should eventually start to score some touchdowns. The Broncos have been struggling with that lately. So maybe Latavius Murray was the piece that this offense needed. Will, what do you think about the Broncos backfield here?
Oh, it's Latavius Murray all the way. Honestly, it's kind of interesting. He's an older guy. I mean, he's not a young person. You know, we always talk about that fall off in age, but he seems to be holding up well. And he can play downs 1 through 3, and he can block. Like when he moves to the Vikings, he can pick up the blitz. He understands that read and his role in that read. So if I'm the Broncos, I'm all in with Latavius Murray. He's my RB1 the rest of the season.
Zach, what do you think?
I think it's going to be a backfield you're not going to want to really count on week in and week out from that perspective. So if I were to pick a guy, I'm actually going to go the contrarian here and say Melvin Gordon, just because he has the continuity with the team and he has the draft capital compared to Latavius Murray. But I can totally see Jeff. You said it perfectly. I said the same thing. I was like Latavius Murray. I was like, I was just watching that London game, and he looked better than Mark Ingram. And now he's on a completely different team. So obviously we weren't the only people who thought he played well. Obviously the Broncos thought he played well enough to bring him in. So I can see this just being like a monstrous backfield of just like names of,
The
NFL
49ers,
past.
The 49ers backfield where it's just a different guy every week.
Right. And you're going to always start the opposite guy. You're going to be like Barnacles.
Yeah, it could definitely be a mess. And that's the thing when people playing all these teams, playing all these guys that are on their practice squad, they got to remember that other teams can still go and sign these guys off the practice squad. Apparently, the Saints offered Murray the roster spot, and he chose to go to Denver over staying with the Saints.
Wow.
So obviously, the Broncos told him, we want to get you involved, as opposed to being with the Saints, being under Alvin Kamara and Mark Ingram. So there is that. That also leads me towards Latavius Murray should actually be involved in this offense. So we'll have to wait and see. But like I said, we have a trade that went down in our Dynasty League that we just started up this year between me and Zach. In this league, I drafted like 6 quarterbacks. It's a super flex league, 12-team league. So obviously, people are going to be cute, quarterback needy. I am not quarterback needy.
Why?
Sorry.
Why?
Well, that's what I say when I go to bed every night. That's what I say when I go to bed every night. Why?
Zach had
go ahead.
Tua in his lineup. He was already struggling with his quarterback position at that. So I traded him Kenny Pickett and Raheem Mostert in exchange for KJ Hamler, hoping, he'll be on the field more than 4 snaps like last week. A first and a second round pick next year. Currently 0-4, so I'm hoping for the number 1 overall pick. Now I got another first round pick, 2 second round picks. I'm hoping to start this team off right. Deshaun Watson's coming back next year. Gonna be good. Zach, why'd you make this trade? Is it just due to the fact you needed a quarterback? Or do you believe Kenny Pickett's going to be the guy for 10, 15 years?
Yes, and maybe. So, I mean, it's an upgrade instantly from what I was going to play, which was going to be nobody. So, from that perspective, it's a win to have the position filled. And honestly, we just went out there and, we gave it everything we got. The guys really did their job handling this trade here. I look at the first round pick as like the first year of a dynasty startup as like a fun coupon. You know what I mean? It's like I can probably afford to burn my first round pick because I just drafted my team. It's not like I'm 3 years into it. My team's falling apart. But I did also lose Trey Lance, just to kind of backtrack. I have Jacoby Brissett as my other quarterback. So you can see my team is in shambles. So I had to do something. And also getting Raheem Mostert is actually a pretty solid pickup as well, which doesn't sting as much getting rid of the draft capital. And Hamler, whatever, he's a guy. But Mostert and Pickett are going to be in my starting lineup. So I guess I had to do it.
Yeah, nice. As a rebuilding team, I kind of drafted my team for next year. The picks definitely are something I was looking forward to. And since I don't want to win this year anyways, you could have Raheem Mostert because he's really only got this year left for him.
Right.
So hopefully he gets hurt and you just fall down the ranking a little bit. That draft pick comes a little higher. But overall, I think it was
I don't know a rebuild. I can't tank. I can't rebuild. It's like I'm always trying to win, and a lot of times that's to a fault. So
yeah.
We'll
this
see what
year you're
happens.
doing pretty good so far. You just got to keep it going and hope that now that you have Kenny Pickett, you're not the problem and you're not the reason these guys keep getting injured. Because that'd be quite unfortunate. Kenny Pickett goes down this week. I think we know Zach is the problem.
Yep.
I'll trade you another quarterback next week for another first-round pick. You got Baker.
Collusion.
Exactly.
I've had so many. I've literally had about half the league in that league trying to message me about trades for quarterbacks.
I mean, not for nothing to piggyback off the collusion thing, but like, what do you guys think? Give me your honest opinion. I offered shot callers who said that it was collusion. I offered him a second, a third, and fourth round pick for next year for Carson Wentz.
Whoa.
No, I think that's fair.
Yeah.
Right?
I would have definitely
he-
taken that. I
That-
wouldn't have
from-
even given
from
up
me-
a second round pick.
I think
Right.
we need a Zach. I think we need a Craze's corner point chart like Jimmy Johnson's, but for fantasy.
Yep.
And so we can evaluate trades fairly because I think that was honestly, I would have took the deal. You would offer me if I had Wentz, you would have given me a second, third, or fourth round. I would have took it.
And I offered that before me and Zach did this trade too. So I feel like I came out in a better position. So
Yeah.
it's just funny that they think that this was the
I mean,
plan
because
all
if
along.
you hit, look, let's be honest. Going into training camp next year, doesn't matter how Pickett plays this year.
Right.
He just can't be horrible. He just has to
can't-
look
yeah.
like a rookie quarterback. The value of Pickett next year, you might, if you want to move him, you could probably move him for another first round pick.
Yeah.
I don't think you lose. Wentz, you weren't going to get a second, third, fourth round pick next year. So
Nothing,
that
yeah.
trade would have hurt you short and long.
Yeah.
Right? Where Pickett, it may pan out or you may be able to recover it.
Let's go.
So if you could have had Drew Lock for a fifth rounder.
I
Could have had
offered-
Drew Lock for a
I put
sandwich.
I put Zach Wilson out there, and he just was like, nope.
No,
No,
no
I
one
could
wants
never.
Zach Wilson. I mean, I might take him just due to the fact so I can replace Kenny Pickett.
Give me one of those first round picks, and you can have him.
No, I don't think a first round pick is quite what Zach Wilson's worth.
I'll take a second, third, and fourth. Just make the offer, Zach.
I'll maybe I'll send something over. Maybe we can work out getting
No.
you a quarterback in the process.
Not for. No, I'm okay. The draft will be good next year.
That's why I want picks next year. That's why I need
Yeah.
picks next year. That was my plan. Get picks next year. Deshaun Watson comes back. I already have Joe Burrow and Trevor Lawrence stacked at the
God damn,
quarterback
that's right. I forgot
position.
you got every quarterback.
That's why I'm in
right.
this position because of Zach.
Yes. I got
Exactly.
Baker still. I have also got Gardner Minshew for when he starts somewhere else. And I'll probably draft a quarterback next year just for fun. So
I'm doing this like the Rams. No draft picks. Still going to make the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
if you win a championship, it doesn't matter how many draft picks you trade away. Winning is
I got a
championship
backup
is
for you if you
important.
need Matt Ryan. I got a backup for you.
I'm starting nobody.
Yeah, I was gonna say I don't think you want to put Matt Ryan out there. But let's switch from dynasty to redraft here. We're gonna talk about some guys we want to trade for and some guys we want to trade away. We're gonna start with the trade for category. I'm gonna go with a guy who I like, a guy who I have on a lot of my rosters, a guy who I have in League One because I'm super excited about what he's going to be able to do, not only this year but next year. And that's Breece Hall. I was a little nervous about Breece Hall with Zach Wilson coming in. Breece Hall was on the field for 66% of the time last week, which was the most by far out of any of his games so far. So obviously Zach Wilson's in the game. They want Breece Hall there. They know he's the best running back in the backfield now. He's kind of earned that. 17 carries last week. I think that's a great number and something that if he can keep up anywhere around there, going to be extremely fantasy relevant. Zach put out a post last week about how Breece Hall was second in targets at the running back position, had 6 again this past week. So he's getting involved not only in the running game, he's getting involved in the passing game. We all know how good rookie running backs are when they come out. He was the highest drafted rookie running back. He might not be on a great team, but we've seen Michael Carter put up points these past couple years, and now we're seeing Breece Hall do it. He's had over 12 points in the past 3 games. And he's getting more and more involved each game. His carries have gone up in all of his games so far, and over the past 3 games, his snap percentage has gone up. So it will eventually plateau out, but I think that's going to be at a point where he's going to be solid as an RB2 for any fantasy team. So I think he's a guy that you're not going to be able to buy low on for much longer. People are going to start to see his numbers continue to go up, and his value is just going to get way too high. So if you're going to buy now on Breece Hall, I think you can get him at a place where you're not overpaying for him, but he's still going to be able to produce. And, maybe he can help you win a fantasy football championship. I'm that type of confident in him. You look at his championship matchups as well, which is also important. If you're thinking about, you're already, maybe you're 3-1, 4-0, you're looking towards the playoffs. You can't get a much better playoff matchups than Detroit. Absolutely atrocious defense. Seattle just went all over them, and it's Seattle. So then we got Jacksonville. Jacksonville's defense hasn't been great against the run at all. We saw what Miles Sanders did to them last week. And we just talked about this team, Seattle. Seattle's defense also sucks. So you can give me Breece Hall against those three teams in the playoffs, and I think he's a guy that can definitely be a guy that can win you a championship. Whether or not he puts up consistent numbers from now to then, you put him in your starting lineup in those 3 games, he's going to score 20 points in 2 of the 3 of them. So I'm confident Breece Hall, go out, get him. Zach, what do you think about Breece Hall this year?
I think Breece Hall is like when you have like a 7 standing next to a bunch of 2s and it makes them look like a 10 because of the landscape of the running back right now. I think, Breece Hall is like a super high sought after piece because you nailed it with the rookie running back. There's nothing more true for fantasy success than a rookie running back. It kills me to say that I like somebody on the Jets. But you slowly see the shift that you generally see with these higher draft capital running backs that slowly take over the backfield, work them in. And Breece Hall, he's one of those running backs that is not only capable of taking over a large snap share, but he also has that explosive play value where he could 2 big plays and he makes the day for you. So yeah, like that. Great pick.
Will, what do you think about Breece Hall?
Nope. Nope.
Will's just out on him because he's a Jet.
And look, I know you're saying like the end of the season looked like it matches up well. I'm not sure it does. I mean, I think those games become shootouts, and I know he's gotten the most receptions for a Jet running back. I'm just not sure that at the end of the year, I don't know which one of those. I don't have the schedule in front of me. Which one of those games are at home? Could be snowing. I don't know if Breece Hall's the guy that I want on my team as a running back 2 the last 4 weeks. Especially when I think there's other guys right now that people are panicking about. Not looking at you, Austin Eckler. You came last week, but people were panicking about that. You could probably pick up a more sure guy that people are ready to dump, but can look like a RB1 maybe as your RB2.
Yeah, and that's fair. I think Breece Hall is going to be that guy. And even in the shootout we saw last week, Rashad Penny put up 30 points. Like, it's not like teams don't run the ball. When it's a shootout, it sometimes makes it easier to run the ball. And as we've said, he's good in the passing game. So those first 2 games are in New York, and the game against Seattle's in Seattle. But if it's a little cold, teams like to run the ball a little more in the cold. So we will see.
But any concern about Zach Wilson maybe starting to steal rushing?
Not really.
It's a real concern.
It's kind of a concern. I'm not really worried about him taking Breece Hall's rushes away from him. I think we saw the targets drop a little bit from 11 to 6 last week. And I think that maybe around that 6 target range. But those 6 targets only amounted to 2 catches last week. And I think that's something that's going to get better. Even if he stays around that 5 to 6 target range, he'll bring that up to 4 to 5 receptions a game. So I think that's, they've just got to build that connection out, because 6 targets to 2 receptions for a running back is not numbers you see at all. The running backs are supposed to be the easy throws. So Zach Wilson should be able to build off that. Jeff, before we move on, any thoughts on Breece Hall?
Oh, yes, because I would like to take some credit, media, for his week that he had last week. He wore the shoes that we supplied. My man went ahead and did the custom on, but they were supplied by media. So, we keep supplying them shoes, man. I think we continue to ball out. So, Breece, hit us, baby. We got more shoes for you to keep you balling out. And then I want you on all my teams. I'm buying all the stock. I'm trading for you. I should have drafted you. Somebody beat me to it. But,
Let's go.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. But I am buying Breece Hall, man. I think he is their future. Who knows? Salah might have 2 more seasons left, if they're not starting to trend in the right direction. He might get a better coach. that could open up that offense a little bit more. But the offense, you're dealing with Joe Flacco, then you're going to Zach Wilson. So they're still trying to get going, and I think it's starting to pick up. So,
Yeah, just not this weekend.
Not this weekend. I get the Teddy B led Dolphins.
Absolutely this weekend.
To my man Brees. So you better start Brees this week because he's gonna have another pair of media J the Plug customs on this week. So 2 touchdowns, baby. I'm calling it right now.
I'm gonna have X run them. Xavier Howard go to run them shoes, son. I want it all.
I don't even think he's gonna be there this week.
He's gonna juke him out just for keep running.
There we go, Zach. Let's move on to your next guy. Who are you trying to trade for right now?
Yeah, this is a little more personalized, like how I kind of play fantasy. Like I try to stay away from like the big name trades, unless like my team is just in the absolute like pooper. So like I'm looking at guys like Tyler Lockett, and I think Tyler Lockett's a good trade for a guy. I'm sure Jeff, you agree here, because I think no one's gonna like look at the trade and like feel like they really have to capitalize on trading away Tyler Lockett. But I think you can also lock yourself into a wide receiver 2. And you could probably get him for, I mean, I don't know what exactly you trade him for, but I think I just want a piece of that Seattle Seahawks offense somehow. What? Like, this is what fantasy is now. I mean, you just look at like just it's kind of silly, honestly, like what we're getting out of Geno Smith in this offense. It's almost like Pete Carroll is just like waving the Pacific bird at Russell Wilson, being like, "Oh yeah, we run too much, bud. Yeah, watch this." So I want a piece of that, and I think people are probably have like Tyler Lockett on their. I mean, I have Tyler Lockett on my bench, so like I'm doing this as a person thing. Like I'm trying to package him, maybe with someone like a little higher, like I don't know, or if you want to trade for him, like I don't know. I think it's just going to take too much. That's just kind of where I'm at with that.
Yeah, I can tell you from personal experience, I've had Tyler Lockett in a dynasty league, and I personally love Tyler Lockett, but I had just traded for DK Metcalf a couple years ago, so I was like, well, maybe I'll just try and move Tyler Lockett because I don't want to have both of those guys rolling out my starting lineup, and literally no one ever wants Tyler Lockett, so he's a guy you can go out and get for almost nothing.
Right.
Especially due to the fact he's number 2 on an offense that people still don't think is good. I mean, we just saw them tear apart Detroit, but Detroit's not great. But Geno Smith is top 3 in quarterback rating so far this year, and I think that's something that's big. He's not making mistakes. He's being smart with the ball. Yeah, top 3, not even top 5, like Zach would say. He's top 3.
Top 3.
So I think it's crazy that, as Zach said, he wants a piece of this Seattle offense. He's been pretty consistent with his targets over the past 3 weeks, 11, 11, and 8. So PPR-wise, I think Tyler Lockett's a guy you should definitely look into getting. If you're playing standard, I probably wouldn't go after Tyler Lockett because he doesn't bring the touchdowns anymore without Russell Wilson that we've seen in the past. But in PPR, he's definitely a guy. He's currently 24, so he's a low-end wide receiver too, like Zach said. So he's definitely a guy I would look at going out to get. Before we go to Jeff, let's go to Will. We'll finish off with Jeff because I know Jeff's got a lot to say. Will, any thoughts on this?
I'm going to pass it to the Seahawk fan.
There you go. You're up, Jeff.
I mean, he's kind of a sneaky target because nobody thought that the Seattle Seahawks offense would be moving the ball through the air. But honestly, I'm saying this as a guy that is a Russell Wilson fan, have been since he was at NC State and then Wisconsin. But Geno is a better fit in a Shane Waldron offense, honestly. That's what it is. So, Lockett, if they're scheming to go ahead and try to take DK out of the game, Lockett is going to get everything underneath. And that's basically all they have other than the tight ends. So, and I think, he is going to be targeted a little bit more as defenses try to stop DK. Plus, you had the little scare this week. I found out he was only going to the bathroom, but they carted DK off the field. but I guess he had a bad case of stomach issue or something like that, where maybe he couldn't run off the field. So, but anyway, I think that is a great sneaky target to get him in your lineup, because later on, I think he's going to escalate and get more targets as well as defenses try to shut down DK Metcalf.
Yeah, so especially in deeper leagues, Lockett's a guy that you definitely want to have. With bye weeks coming up, we got to remember bye week starts soon.
Yep.
And with
He's a
that
guy.
being said, you look at the games after the bye. You have Las Vegas, Los Angeles Rams, Carolina Panthers, San Francisco 49ers. This is like all week 12 through the playoffs. You have KC. What's the championship game? Week 17 now?
Yeah.
So you have the New York Jets for the championship game with Tyler Lockett and the Seahawks offense.
Jets.
If anyone's
Yep.
going to know how to beat Geno Smith, it's the Jets. They beat him up over the past, however many years he was with them. They seem to be able to shut him down pretty
Mentally
good, so
beat him.
If he goes back to New York,
Revenge
that might be a
game for
situation
Geno.
you want to stay away from. Who knows what going back to New York will do to him? Might just ruin the rest of his career.
This is a new Geno. It's a new Geno, though.
He'll never be as bad as butt fumble. Never be as bad as butt fumble.
No.
All right, we got a butt fumble, and then Zach's over here with the butt punt.
Butt punt.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Butt
Both.
fumble's much worse than butt punt.
Oh, the butt
Yeah,
fumble was amazing.
yeah.
It was amazing.
Yeah.
It's great. Thanksgiving
Classic
too.
Jets.
Couldn't be better. Could not be better. Will, you got a homer pick here.
Yeah.
Currently the RB25. This was a guy I think Zach was kind of talking about earlier.
Yeah, I think it goes back to what I was saying earlier, that what owner is nervous about a player they picked in the first or second or third round that they thought was a pillar for their team? And I'm going to tell you, Dalvin Cook, I think, has a better second half of the season. And if you can get him, I think you can get him cheap right now. I think people are going to be like, yeah, I'll take. If you offer Jeff Wilson, I think Wilson's a good running back. No hit on Wilson. But I'm trying to think, there's guys out there you could probably get that you couldn't have got Dalvin Cook a few weeks earlier. And I think he's worth, if you're like a 2-2 team and you just hey, if I make the playoffs, I can make a run. I can have possibly 2 RB1s, real RB1s on my team for the playoff push. I think Dalvin's going to get there. He hasn't been using the passing attack as much as people thought. I think this offense is in progress. I think the coaching staff's going to adjust. I think the offensive line is getting better with the scheme. He hasn't done bad. I mean, even fantasy-wise, he hasn't done bad except for the week he left the game early with his shoulder. But, I think the Vikings will get back around to using him more later in the season. And I think he could be a steal if you can get him for low. I'm not giving up anybody great, but if I can get him for RB2, maybe I would make that trade.
Yeah, I think he's a guy to look into. I mean, he's had that shoulder injury, but he dealt with that all of last year, so people might still be iffy on the injury. A lot of people didn't think he was going to play last week, and I was like, come on, guys, he's going to play. He dealt with this all of last year. It's not going to be a problem.
A lot of mad people who picked Madison up on the waiver wire thinking, I'm picking up an RB1 for a week.
Yep.
Although Madison got the touchdown.
He did.
He did get the touchdown.
Always does.
Yeah.
This is like Groundhog Day with
Yeah.
Dalvin Cook and Alexander Madison. I've had Alexander Madison in Dynasty for 3 years, and I'm not a Dalvin Cook manager ever in that Dynasty. Just shows you how repetitive every year he's actually worth holding on to, because every single season you get a spot start out of Alexander Madison. So for those reasons, you could probably take advantage of the frustrated Dalvin Cook manager, like you were saying, and probably just maybe lean out your bench or your depth, fringe starters. Get yourself some star power for Dalvin Cook, because that he's gonna come back like he always does. He's gonna go nuts on Thanksgiving or something. Like that. That's what he does. He throws his little sling on and he goes out there and he goes nuts. So I like it.
Well, he plays Chicago this upcoming week. So who knows?
That's what
He could go off
Thanksgiving.
this week.
Yeah, true. Yeah, but I'm saying, give him a little bit. He likes to dip.
This is Canadian Thanksgiving this weekend. That's what you're talking
Oh,
about.
it's Canadian.
I know it.
That's you.
Absolutely. Let's go Thanksgiving this weekend.
Who said our show's not educational? In America, it's Canadian Thanksgiving this weekend. So
I don't understand. Did you guys Did you guys also have pilgrims and Indians come together for in Canada? Because I thought that's what. What's the background behind Canadian Thanksgiving? You guys are just thankful that we found North America?
I not a clue. Who knows? Just we're here. We get a holiday on Monday, so
We're here.
I'll
Is it
take
Thursday and Friday like the States, or is
No,
it just
wait,
on the
ours is
weekend?
Monday. Ours is Monday.
Which is
Oh.
Columbus Day here. Oh, it's so intertwined.
Wait, so
Can you imagine-
Columbus Day is our Thanksgiving. Not bad.
you
Not
imagine?
bad.
Can you imagine having Thanksgiving in America on a Monday and you had to go to work on Tuesday? That just wouldn't work.
Well, yeah, we don't quite celebrate Thanksgiving the same way you guys do. We don't have any football really on Thanksgiving other than the Monday night game.
The food. Who can go to work the next day?
Oh, we normally do actual Thanksgiving celebrations on the Sunday because then we take the Monday as the day off. That's what my family does, at least, and a lot of families I know do, because you don't want to go to work the day after. It doesn't.
I love
work.
it though. Thanksgiving's the
There
best.
you go.
Good.
Yeah,
You
I
guys
love
learned something new today, and then I
We
also
sure did.
celebrate American Thanksgiving. Take the day
Of
off,
course.
everything, and I get 2 days, 2 Thanksgivings every year. It's perfect. You guys should
That
really
is
maybe you guys take Monday off and be like, yo, I'm celebrating Thanksgiving. Sorry, guys.
Sure.
Can't
And
do
there's the
anything
difference.
about it.
I'm getting fired. Like, we don't give a shit what day it is in Canada.
Well, it's been perfect. My parents have all booked a day off. I never went to school on Thanksgiving. Like, American Thanksgiving was just something that was intertwined in our family, so we could watch football. So it's
There you
Awesome.
go.
I love it.
That's
I love
great.
it. We need
Y'all
more
should make it
Thanksgiving.
America Day. That would be great.
There you go.
Sorry, whole tangent there. Apologies.
Jeff, let's move on to your next guy here. Who is your first trade for candidate?
I am making a power move in some of my
Uh-oh.
leagues. If I have a kind of top tier quarterback, I want an even higher grade quarterback. So I might pair him with a wide receiver that isn't doing that great. And I'm going to take a quarterback and a wide receiver or a running back, and I'm going after Jalen Hurts. He has proven to me that he is the quarterback that I thought he was going to be, that I wanted the Steelers to draft in the second round before he went to the Eagles as the replacement for Big Ben. This dude can do it all. I am convinced the Eagles need to go ahead and sign him, submit him. He is as advertised. There should be no longer any wonder about what he is. He can throw, he can run. He's what you want, and he's dedicated and determined. End of story.
Yeah, I mean, he's been consistent on the ground so far. I thought they were going to dial back his rushing work a little bit because his body won't be able to sustain this for very long. We've seen that for pretty much all running quarterbacks in the league. He's had 17, 11, 9, and 16 rush attempts. Those aren't numbers you want to keep. Lamar Jackson doesn't have numbers that high.
Yeah, Jalen Hurts is yoked though.
Yeah.
You seen Jalen Hurts up close. Lamar Jackson he's narrow. He's thin.
Okay, but Cam Newton could not sustain his rushing numbers, which were much lower than that. And Cam Newton was a bigger guy than Jalen Hurts. He was stronger than Jalen Hurts.
He also wore like bonnet hats and scarves in press interviews, so we don't really know how strong he actually was. But I think Jalen Hurts is probably a little tougher.
And he's not taking huge, significant hits. That's what I've been watching.
He's a smart
Jalen
runner.
Hurts is not taking huge hits, man. And he's going into the end zone. He is walking in half of the time. So he's got a defense that supports the offense as well. He is just in a perfect situation. A lot of people need to go ahead and apologize to Nick Sirianni. I'm actually one of them that thought it was going to be a train wreck. This dude has put together a nice team. Last year was not a fluke. So I just see them continuing to improve. I'm picking them definitely to win, not necessarily in the NFC East. I'm picking them to win that. That's about it. But yeah, but he is.
I think NFC East is a good call.
Yeah.
I think NFC is a good call. That's got. They probably got to be the favorites right now, right? They're the only undefeated team. They have to be.
So, well, we'll find out after this weekend because I believe this is the matchup.
I mean, I don't know. Cooper Rush undefeated, Jalen Hurts undefeated. We need to see these two duel it out before we can pick favorites, The only thing that concerns me about Jalen Hurts is the fact that he's only thrown for 4 touchdowns so far. If his rushing numbers drop and he doesn't throw touchdowns, it's going to be a problem. He's currently on pace for, I think, 17 passing touchdowns this year, which is one more than he had last year. And I said before the season, this number's got to get above 20 for me, want to have him. So I think he's got to throw more touchdowns. He had 3 against Washington, 1 against Minnesota, none against Detroit, who we just saw Geno Smith absolutely torch, and none against Jacksonville, who's been pretty good against the passing game. So I just want to see him throw more touchdowns, especially in 6-point passing touchdown leagues. I think there definitely could be some other options. And I think Jalen Hurts is kind of a hard guy to buy right now, because whoever has Jalen Hurts is probably 3-1.
Yes.
So
right.
I probably wouldn't. I've been lower on Jalen Hurts. I will continue to be lower on Jalen Hurts until he starts throwing touchdowns.
That's why I wish you had him, so I could go ahead.
You wish I had him in League One as one of my 6 quarterbacks.
Exactly.
Then I would definitely trade him to you. Zach, so you're all in on Jalen Hurts as well?
Yep, I have Jalen Hurts in a few leagues. Love him. He's I understand your perspective from the passing angle. However, this is fantasy we're discussing, so he could not throw any touchdowns and probably still finish as a top 10 quarterback, even if he just does his rushing deal for the rest of the season. So yeah, I do agree though, it's gonna be tough to trade for him, and I think I want him on my team, but I think you might overpay if you're playing with some savvy guys. If you're playing with some home leagues, you could probably finesse something.
I would say
Since
wait
I
for
have
him.
in League One, 27 points, 37. This came down a little bit this week with 17, but that's only because the running game was kind of bonkers.
The only
QB2?
problem last week, QB3 in that
QB3.
league. That's the league I look at stats in, because that's my most, that's the stats I use most of the time. But with that being said, he had a down week, 17 points, and he had 16 rushing attempts because he only threw the ball for 200 yards and an interception. He did not throw for touchdowns. He's got to throw for touchdowns. You're going to have these down weeks. If he has another down week, then maybe he's a guy you can look at trying to buy lower on, just due to the fact that people might start to get worried that, this guy can't throw touchdowns, which is very true. But,
may not happen this week against the Cardinals. So
Baker Mayfield threw a touchdown against the Cardinals. So
that's
if
what
Jalen
I'm
Hurts
saying.
doesn't come out and throw. If he comes out and throws for no touchdowns against the Cardinals, I don't know. He's doing something wrong. AJ Brown.
He's gonna rush for 3. Rush for 3 and have 0 pass and be like, what do we do?
That's it.
Interesting. Will, any thoughts on Jalen Hurts here before we move on?
I mean, we're talking redraft league, so I think he has value. Their schedule's easy. You look at their schedule, Cowboys, the 2 Cowboy games are the toughest games, honestly, they have left. Now, I think that Cowboy defense is going to play with a chip on their shoulder, and they'll play man coverage, and they'll dare him to beat them throwing. I dare you, because we're going to light you up if you run the ball. That Cowboy defense is a beast, and those linebackers, okay, and they can, and the Cowboys can play man to man on the wide receivers with the Eagles. And then if the Cowboys are successful to that, every team's going to copy it. Like, okay, Jalen, we're not going to let you beat us running. You're going to have to throw the ball to win. And I don't know if he can do that. That's just the truth. I think teams underestimated the Eagles. But let's say you double you double
AJ Brown.
AJ
Brown. Now, it's going to be one of my future players. But it is about, I think teams are going to start coming and say, he has to beat me throwing the ball. We're not going to let the Eagles beat us running.
But see, I think that's where the thing about him coming in, not throwing passing touchdowns, they do what they need to win. That's what I was watching with their offense. If they're killing running, they're just going to run. If they're playing Washington and they're Devonta Smith is killing whatever corner is covering him. They're
Yeah.
going to kill even Dallas Goedert. Their whole thing, man. They'll pull Quez Watkins out of anywhere. So that's what they're so balanced.
But here's the problem, Jeff. Going into the playoffs, right? Because fantasy is about matchups at the end of the season, right? Can you win enough games, and then how do you look in the playoff? Those 2 games during the playoffs leading up, so week 17, they're playing at home against the Saints, which I think they can control.
Mm-hmm.
But the 2 weeks before that, when you're trying to win to get to the championship game, it's at the Bears, and God knows what Soldier Field is going to look like in December. And then it's at the Cowboys December 24th. And I'm telling y'all right now, that Cowboy defense on December 24th is going to feast on some Eagles. That's just the truth. That game is in Dallas. It's just you could just feel the whole season's building that way. And it would to me, it'd be horrible to have Jalen Hurts and then he plays poor against the Cowboys in Dallas and it costs you your chance at the championship.
Let me tell you, Dallas is about to have their drama implode their team because Cooper Rush is about to win again. Then Dak is going to come back and he's going to lose. Now there's going to be a whole quarterback competition or controversy, and it's just going to kill Dallas. That's what I'm waiting on right now. I'm waiting for the mid-season soap opera that always takes Dallas down. I'm waiting for that to happen, and that's going to happen between quarterbacks.
Hey Jeff, like Philly has the sanest fans in America, and they don't have any.
Oh, they have their fans
right.
are crazy.
Watch him have a bad game against the Cowboys, and you watch how quick people are talking about.
They'll be calling for Minshew.
Well, so come week 15 when they play Dallas there in the game you're talking about, the Eagles' offensive line will be down to all backups outside of Jason Kelsey. They'll be playing Micah Parsons and DeMarcus Lawrence, so they're going to eat off the edge. And Jalen Hurts, I think he'll make some bad decisions, and we could see Trayvon Diggs with 2 picks in that game. So we will see. We got to move on, though. Let's move on to my next guy I'm trying to trade for everywhere. He's a guy I actually have a lot of. Traded for him in a league last week. Got himself a new quarterback and had the best game so far of the season. Last year's wide receiver 2, I'm talking about Deebo Samuel. Deebo Samuel now has a quarterback who likes to throw the ball in Jimmy Garoppolo. Jimmy Garoppolo likes Deebo Samuel.
There you go. That's the real reason.
He's going to be consistent. Last week, 7 targets, 6 receptions, 115 yards, and a touchdown. He only had 2 carries in that game, and he still put up 20 points. As we see the 49ers run game continue to, injury here, injury there, Deebo's going to get his carries. They get him involved everywhere they can. Currently sitting as the wide receiver 16 in the league I'm looking at. So I think he's going to come back up and be a top 5 wide receiver the rest of the season. And I think you can get him at a low wide receiver 1, high-end wide receiver 2 price currently. And that's a price I'm definitely willing to pay. I love Deebo Samuel with Jimmy Garoppolo at quarterback. They have a very easy matchup going forward. Their next 4 games, Carolina, Atlanta, KC, and the Rams, should be able to put up numbers against all of those teams. Not worried about that. You come to the playoff schedule, you've got this atrocious defense in Seattle. Not worried about that. We saw Jalen Hurts throw for 3 touchdowns against the Washington team. Not worried about the Washington defense stopping Deebo Samuel. And Las Vegas's defense also cannot stop the pass, so I'm not worried about that matchup. I think Deebo Samuel is going to be a great guy to have on your team for the rest of the season. As long as he stays healthy. We saw him stay healthy all of last year. So far, so good. Let's keep it going. Get yourself some Deebo Samuel. Zach, any thoughts on Deebo?
Yeah, as make sure that the health stays. God forbid any injuries happen. I will see Deebo playing live. I'm going to see the Dolphins play in San Francisco. So hopefully Deebo puts on a show that game. So from that perspective, I'm excited to see it. But yeah, he was going to honestly be one of my picks to trade for because I'm not sure exactly if he's really returned the draft value. I don't have his game log in front of me, but I kind of feel
it was like 10, 12, 10, and then 20 last week.
Right. So it's not like you're like, you have to hang on to this guy if you're the manager kind of thing. So I can see where you could probably capitalize on the dip right here. and give Garoppolo a few more games back out there, get that connection flowing again. And you see Debo, 3-touchdown game kind of ceiling that he has. And it's another one of those things, too, where you really want to be strategic. And I like that the wide receivers are being mentioned here because I feel like that's – I don't know if anybody's trading running backs. Or it's especially this year. It just seems like the running back position is so tarnished that I think these kind of guys are perfect trade values because you don't really have to give up. You could probably hold on to your running backs, or if you're so lucky to have like depth running back positions, like you can kind of package some things up and get a guy like Debo. So now you have the depth at running back still, and you have a superstar wide receiver, which everybody wants for fantasy.
Yeah, absolutely. Will, any thoughts on Debo?
Oh, I love Debo. I mean, I wish I had him on more of my rosters, especially. I think a lot of us didn't want to say it, but I think everybody was a little skeptical of Trey Lance. And with Jimmy back in there, honestly, had the Jimmy thing worked out earlier in the offseason, I probably would have been even higher on Debo. Because you just kind of got the feel, hey, this team's going to go back to Jimmy at some point.
Yeah, I think
and Jimmy loves Debo, right?
Jimmy's the key. Jimmy really is the key. If Trey Lance was still their quarterback, I really wouldn't want to be trading for Debo at this point. But with Jimmy back, I love it. Jeff, anything to say before we move on here?
I'm the only one that's going to throw a little bit of water on this parade.
Ooh.
I still look at last night wondering, or Monday night wondering what his stat line would have looked like if somebody could actually tackle on the Rams. Taylor Rapp, I'm looking at you. It a lot of the yards came from that awful play where he broke 3 tackles, which he didn't really break. Guys just couldn't tackle. So I was kind of like, yeah, it looks great after the fact, but it was horrible tackling.
So
that's basically what it was.
Jeff is the guy who owns Debo Samuel in your league. You have to go get Debo Samuel now. Capitalize on this negativity.
Exactly.
How much Debo do you own? If I had him, 0.
I might be inclined, but he is truly the number one. I have Brandon Ayuk on one of my teams, and I'm just like, he is definitely second fiddle to Debo in that offense. But I'm just not really sold on that offense being powerful at all. It's not. If you look at it, a lot of it is their defense has actually scored in the last 2 or 3 games. Other than that, the offense has been kind of, really lackluster. Garoppolo's got 1 or 2 touchdowns here or there. That's about it. They're just not dominant. So, if I had Debo, I might be inclined to trade him for another wide receiver and possibly a running back. I might, be game to make a deal. So, but that's just me.
Go find Jeff in all of your leagues, a guy like Jeff who has Debo Samuel, and go get yourself some Debo Samuel. You will not regret it. Zach, let's move on to your next guy here. Who are you trying to trade for?
I'm going to go with Amari Cooper, wide receiver for the Browns. Down week, got absolutely locked up by A.J. Terrell. But other than that, you have 2 back-to-back 100-yard games. This is all with Jacoby Brissett and Nick Chubb setting the world on fire, as well as Kareem Hunt being involved. So I think you have to like the outlook when Deshaun Watson finally steps on the field. And I think Deshaun Watson's camp is celebrating this Tua stuff because just like everything else in the NFL, we'll all forget about all the shenanigans before, just like we forgot about Ray Rice and we forgot about Mike Vick and everybody else that came along. And Deshaun Watson is going to be out there just crushing it because he's good at football. And Amari Cooper is going to be probably the number one recipient for that. And look what he's able to do. In this sample size, we have 4 weeks now. And I think you have to like what you've seen from Amari Cooper. I think a lot of people were down on him because of the quarterback, because it's the Browns. But even still, he's been able to – I think he's wide receiver 24 or like wide receiver 22 right now. So he's still he's still a wide receiver too. And again, these are guys like works great in a package, or you look for the Javonte, like guys that lost players to injury for the season, like these are perfect guys to get off of their roster and to get onto yours, kind of thing.
Yeah, I agree. I think he's a guy that come week 11 or 12, not sure. I think it's an 11-game suspension, so I think Watson will be back week 12. He's going to go off when Watson gets back. First couple games might be slow. Watson's got to get the feel for it, but come playoff time, if you have a good enough team.
I think it's 13 because he's playing against Houston.
Oh, Houston's
So it'll be
either way.
Yeah, so you get Houston, Cincinnati, Baltimore, New Orleans, Washington.
Yeah.
So I mean,
okay. So I like
pretty
Cooper when Watson comes back. I think if your team can sustain, hopefully keeping Cooper on the bench until then, he's a guy I would look to get. I don't want to start Amari Cooper week in, week out as my wide receiver too. I think he's going to be too inconsistent. We've already seen a 3 and a 1 point game from him. So I'm just a little nervous when it comes to that. But I think he's a guy that if you can buy low on now, say you have a running back that might be something, go trade him to the Javonte owner for Amari Cooper coming off a bad game. Hold Amari Cooper on your bench till Watson comes back. I think that's definitely, he can be a guy that'll put up 25 points every game throughout the playoffs. We already talked about how bad Washington's defense is. It's not good. Baltimore's been letting Tua throw for 6 touchdowns, so their defense, hasn't been looking like it's supposed to. In New Orleans, they're all right. Nothing special. They're not terrible.
Yep. Let up all that to Justin Jefferson last week. But yeah, that's good matchups, and I think a lot of points to like just a kind of preferences. Like I'm in a ton of like deeper leagues, so I guess like I try to like really shape this to like how I'm looking at the landscape of fantasy, and I'm not sure if there are many 12-team leagues where people aren't consistently thinking about playing Amari Cooper at least as their flex, especially if you're in like a multiple flex. If you're in a 3 wide receiver league, and you can lock in like I talked about Lockett earlier, and like Amari Cooper, if you can get these guys in and buy them for peanuts and have essentially the 1A, 1B, and you can toss them in your flex, or if you're in a 3 wide receiver league, you put them in your wide receiver 3. That's a huge advantage, especially if it's full PPR.
Yeah, I love him in 3 wide receiver leagues. You look at League 1, not sure if you guys know who has Amari Cooper, probably the Deshaun Watson owner. But starting him every week as a wide receiver 3, especially when Deshaun Watson comes back, I think they're going to be on fire together. So deeper leagues, he's going to put up weeks that'll win you your week, and then he'll just put up duds, and you'll have to hope the rest of your team can build off that. He's pretty much like Mike Williams light. Just doesn't quite have the same upside Mike Williams has currently. But Will or Jeff, anything to add before we move on here?
I've got him in most of my leagues except for League 1 for that purpose. I kind of had a feeling this week, because he had gone off the past 2 weeks, that they were going to scheme for him. It's like, who else are they going to throw to? So they were finally like, we're going to lock him down and just, try to stop Nick Chubb. And that's exactly what they did. So that's not going to happen. Go ahead.
Yeah, AJ. I was just gonna say AJ Terrell is for real. So
Yeah,
that's who locked him up last week. So I'll kind of throw that game out the window.
He's for real about half the time, and then he's absolutely trash the other half the time. Yeah, this season so far, that was his only good game. He was atrocious the first 3 weeks. It was absolutely hilarious to watch as a Panthers fan. I got to see all the Falcons fans freaking out that this guy was not what he was last year. It was amazing. I loved so much of it.
But yeah, I was not expecting this week against the Falcons, but I knew something like that was going to happen, to where they're like, this is the only guy that they have to throw the ball to. Now they found Donovan Peoples-Jones. So, I think now that they're going to have to go ahead and spread things out again, I think this next week he bounces back.
Yeah, I think it could happen. Will, let's move on to your next guy. We talked about one boom bust wide receiver so far. Drop another one for us here.
Even though I talk bad about Jalen Hurts, I'm saying Devonta Smith, because I think if you can get him as a wide receiver 3, as defenses are going to say, hey, you're not going to beat us running, you're not going to beat us with Brown. If he doesn't rise to the occasion, it is what it is. But I think he's going to get the opportunities. And then he had the one good week, and then last week had a down week, right? So you might be able to get in and get somebody who's like, yeah, let me get rid of him now. But I think a lot of owners are worried about Jalen Hurts throwing touchdowns. So what are the value of the Eagles wide receivers if he's only going to throw 17 touchdowns? So, it's probably, if you're going to get him, now's the time to get him. Now in a keeper league, I would even go more after him because I think there's a long-term future for him. But in a redraft, he could just be the guy that helps you win a championship at the end, except for that Cowboys game. But that's what I'm saying, wide receiver 3.
Yeah, I think he's just going to be up and down all year.
Yeah.
You're going to play him some weeks and be happy, and you're going to play him other weeks, and he'll put up his week 1 stat line of nothing. So,
but that's every wide receiver.
Yeah.
Like unless you're Cooper Kupp and Justin Jefferson.
Right.
Tyler Lockett
even Jefferson's had had 2 down games.
Right. Which is why
there's wide receivers that don't have down games. And like Tyler Lockett, those are the guys I would prefer to have as
right.
Wide
and
receiver.
that was kind of like the thing I was leading into. That's why I kind of trading. It doesn't sound flashy and sexy to trade for those guys, or even like you're saying AJ Brown. Like it still doesn't. But like Keenan Allen would have inconsistent weeks, like Tyreek Hill is going to have inconsistent weeks. So if you're going to have a position that's inconsistent, you might as well have guys that are capable, like AJ Brown, who has a ceiling of he may give you nothing for 2 weeks, but the one game you really need him to really set you over the edge for points. I think he's capable of doing that. So I like that too. I mean, Devonta Smith, rather. Sorry.
Yeah.
Anything you want to add before we move on here, Jeff? All right,
Nope.
Jeff. The floor is all yours. Who's coming up here?
You know who has shocked
Intro
the
music.
hell out of me, and I've got him on one of my teams in another league, but Josh Jacobs. I mean, they finally figured, give the man the damn ball and let him run. Quit trying to get all these other guys in there. Quit trying to force the ball to Devonta Adams and Mac Hollins and everybody else. Run the damn ball with this guy. He's proven that he can be an every down back, and he had a great week this week, and I think he's finally showed something to their head coach, who is always used to having 3 or 4 backs to run in and out. And I think it's going to change things for that Raiders offense, and I think they're going to start using him a lot more, especially around the goal line now. So I like some Josh Jacobs, man, and I'm looking. He's still one of those mid-range running backs where I think people aren't really thinking about him. So you throw out a decent offer, and I think somebody's going to get rid of him. Like if you had a Joe Mixon, I might say, hell, I'll go ahead and throw a Joe Mixon over to see if I can get Josh Jacobs and maybe one other player in there as well. So I like him right now.
Yeah, I think he's coming off his best week for sure. 32 points last week against Denver. The thing that stood out to me looking at his stat line after the game is he was on the field for 89% of the snaps, which is by far the highest I think that he's ever had in this Raiders offense. So I think that's something that hopefully he can sustain. He's just under 5 yards per carry on the season, which is pretty good. The only thing I will say, Josh McDaniels used to coach for the Patriots, and you didn't want to own Patriots running backs. I don't know if I want to own a Josh McDaniels running back either. I'm a little hesitant, but I think he's going to be good, and I think he'll be fairly consistent throughout the rest of the season. So if you can get him, maybe hopefully you wait a week or two. He kind of goes back down to those 12-point weeks, and you can get him at a little bit of a discount as opposed to right now coming off a 32-point week. But he's not a guy I would definitely avoid in a trade. He would be a guy that would intrigue me. Zach, anything you want to add here?
Nope. Love it. Josh Jacobs, only running back to ever finish as a RB2 every single season, yet to have a receiving touchdown in the NFL. Love it.
And Will, anything you want to add before we move on to some sells?
I'm good.
All right. Here we go. We're going to move on to some sells. We're going to go quickly through this. Each of us has one guy we're looking to trade away if we have this guy on our team. I'm going to start us off with a guy that you're trying to capitalize on his current value. This guy is currently number one at his position. We mentioned him a little bit earlier, and that's going to be Nick Chubb. So far, I think you can probably get a very good return. You can get a running back or a running back one, top 12, and another piece back that can help you, especially if you're low on depth. You need an extra guy to stick as your wide receiver 2 or in your flex position every week. I don't think Nick Chubb keeps up over 1 touchdown a game. So far, he's had 5 through 4 games. In this Browns offense, when Deshaun Watson comes back, we're not exactly sure what it's going to look like. It could look really, really good for Nick Chubb, or we could see things start to fall apart for Nick Chubb. We could see him get involved a little less. The rushing numbers could come down as the Browns start to throw a little more. I want to see how that works in. I just think there's no better time to capitalize on having the number one guy at the position that right now. Nick Chubb's only on the field for like 55% of the time on average in each game. Something I hate to watch if you have a guy like this is if you're actually watching the Browns play and you're like, damn, this guy's never on the field even though he puts up numbers. I just think it's a guy, he's got some harder matchups coming than he's had previously. And I don't think he's going to finish as the RB1. So if you can capitalize right now, RB1 value, get a lot back for him. I'm all for it. Go get yourself another running back 1 and upgrade at a different position. Are you guys all in on also getting rid of Chubb if you can? I'm not saying get rid of him for nothing, but capitalize on the RB1 value if you can. Everyone's good with that? Yeah? All right.
You get a top receiver and maybe a top quarterback for him, but you got to remember a lot of people got Chubb at a really nice spot in the draft because he had fallen so far. So that was another thing as well. So if you got Nick Chubb, you probably have a pretty decent quarterback, and you probably got a good stable of wide receivers as well. So it's just kind of figuring out who else could you get to, shore up your spot. You're not going to trade him for. I'd rather have him than Jonathan Taylor. I'd rather have him than Najee Harris right now. So it's like, who else are you going to get?
Yeah, like I said, you got to downgrade a little bit at running back, but upgrade at wide receiver. Go get yourself Mark Andrews at tight end or one of the top quarterbacks. There's just, if you lack at another position, you can still get a really, really good running back plus. But Zach, what did you want to add there?
Yeah, that's what I was going to just follow up on that. Like if you had Javonte and Nick Chubb, like you may want to capitalize, like even though you still have Nick Chubb, but like you lost Javonte, you could fill those 2 positions, upgrade instead of streaming or having your bench running back come in that gets you 2 points every week. Maybe you can get a guy that has a floor of like 10 and maybe that,
you could
that's
go
the difference.
Get like Josh Jacobs and Joe Mixon.
Right, exactly.
Pull something off like that.
Right. And if you want to like fill out your team, do 2 different positions. If you're Nick Chubb, you lost Javonte, now you can, fill in. You can probably get 3 pieces depending on who you go for. So yeah, definitely. I mean, what's his touchdown pace right now? It's got to be closing
5
in 20.
for 4 games. It would be over 20 because you play 17 games now, so it'd be around 21.
Yeah. So
he's on pace to run for more touchdowns than Jalen Hurts is to throw for.
Yeah, I mean that was Jonathan Taylor and Austin Eckler last year. Both finished with 20 touchdowns, and that was total touchdowns, not rushing touchdowns. Nick Chubb is. I don't know how many receiving he has. I think they're all rushing, but
they're all rushing,
which is crazy. Just really crazy. But he's one of the best pure runners in the NFL. So he's worth the value.
Absolutely. Zach, let's move on to your next trade away candidate. It's a guy I like that I'd like to trade away coming off a big week.
Yeah, he's the poster child for sell high, and it's TJ Hawkinson because you're like, well, this is what he does. I mean, let's look at it. Week 1, 7 targets. Week 2, 7 targets. Week 3, 4. Week 3, 4 targets. Week 4, 12 targets, right? And last week was a result of no Amon-Ra St. Brown and no DeAndre Swift, and he still only managed to bring in a few extra targets, which is what he needed to have that crazy game. Granted, he went off, but once DeAndre Swift's back, like there goes those extra targets, in my opinion. Especially when Amon-Ra St. Brown comes back, there goes those extra targets. So he literally needs.
Screw
DJ Chark. Jameson Williams. Zach knows what's up.
Right. So you have a lot of pieces, and granted, the Detroit Lions are going to have to score 700 points every single week just to stay in the game. Yeah, I don't believe that Hawkinson has what it takes because it's not like this is the week where we go, oh my God, look at what he's able to do with a high target share. Like he always has a high target share. I mean, if you watch some of those games where it's just painful, like 7 targets for like 3 catches because he's dropping like all of them right in his hands. Like I don't want a player like that in my team, especially because he's a tight end. So there could be guys out there that are sick of streaming that are just like one piece. Like they have so much depth that they're able to like move pieces. You can get a 2 guys back for TJ Hawkinson for the right guy right now, for sure.
Or you could just upgrade at a different position, whether it's wide receiver, get yourself a nice running back piece. And the thing I look at in his first 3 games, he had 7 targets, 4 receptions, 7 targets, 3 receptions, and then 4 targets for 3 receptions. But look at his yards per target, 5, 3, 4. And then last week he had 14. So that 14 is the anomaly.
Yeah.
Those yards per target are absolutely atrocious for any player, especially for a tight end who's supposed to be a guy that can go downfield and get open.
First round pick.
It's because it was the Seattle Seahawks who was listening to Zach and they're like, don't worry about him. Worry about everybody else but TJ Hawkinson. And this is the game that he went ahead and exploded. Yeah, it's not going to continue.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. Anything else we want to add before we move on to Will's next pick here?
I'll just say at some point Jared Goff will be Jared Goff.
Yep.
Oh, the Jared Goff slander.
King Goff.
There's a reason why the Rams traded him.
Well,
they were like, thanks for the Super Bowl appearance.
Yeah.
Get the heck out of here, bud. We want the older version of you.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Who's just slightly better.
No, we're not allowed to have Matthew Stafford slander in this space, according to Zach.
No Matthew Stafford slander. But, Will, let's move on to your next guy, who's a guy I almost put on my trade for list here.
And that's exactly why I'm saying move him now. And that's Jonathan Taylor. Because a couple more weeks of this, you're not going to get nothing for him. So if you have him and someone's still in love with Jonathan Taylor, thinking, honestly, I would do the same thing with Austin Eckler. Because I'm not sure last week's the norm or the first couple weeks were the norm. So I am going to move these guys if I can get 2 good pieces for them.
Yeah, I think me, Jonathan Taylor right now is at a point where that fantasy owner, if that fantasy owner, I'm in a league right now where the Jonathan Taylor owner had Javonte Williams. And he's screwed. He's screwed at the running back position. So these guys need to move them. Jonathan Taylor, I've seen offers come in my DMs on Instagram. People are like, what should I do? This guy's offered me Jonathan Taylor. I'm like, Jonathan Taylor, I think he will bounce back. He's out this week, which I think was smart. Let him rest. He'll come back. I think he'll be healthy. He will be a running back 1. He'll be a top 12 back. I don't think he's going to finish as the RB1, but I think he still is a running back 1. And if you can go out and get him for RB2 value, I'm in on that. And I would definitely go out and do it. Zach, Jeff, what do you guys think about Jonathan Taylor?
He was the RB25 at this point of the season last year.
That's exactly
and currently, he is the RB22.
Mm-hmm.
But he won't be the RB1 again. So I was just throwing some cute out there, like, oh, could it happen again? It's like, nah.
Right. Even his rookie year.
Not with Matt Ryan behind center.
Even his rookie year, he started off late. I mean, he started going towards the end of the season. So that's what I'm thinking, but Matt Ryan is an anchor of the offense right now.
And this conversation is exactly the point why you could still get something for him.
You're right. You're right.
I would give you something for him, but I think the guys who own Jonathan Taylor right now want to move him, and that's why I think you get him at a discount as opposed to.
Unfortunately, I think no, it's the opposite. I think people fell in love because if you drafted Jonathan Taylor, you probably in a redraft league, you were a top 2 or 3 pick.
Number 1 overall.
Right. You were probably number 1 overall pick or the number 2, 3 at the worst. Fantasy owners have a hard time when they fall in love with a player, have a hard time moving them. They would rather sink their season thinking, I'll trade him and he's going to come back. Yeah, but you could get 2 guys right now for sure who are performing because people are all thinking that exact same thing. Oh, I'll steal him for 2 guys. Okay.
Yep. Go to the guy that has like the quote unquote super team right now. Go to the
Yep.
the guy that has and if he's like, oh, I'm already good, let me add Jonathan Taylor to my team, because he has the name value. Like, I'll be a beast, even if he has to go on my bench, and take advantage of that guy. Be like, if he wants to have that super team so bad, make him pay for it. And get rid of Jonathan Taylor and the headache that he's going to be all season with Nyheim Hines and just a terrible offense in general.
Yeah, the offense is horrible. It's horrible. And nobody's afraid of Matt Ryan or the wide receivers. So it's really starting to become, you're not going to run on us until he proves he can throw the ball on us. And
Derrick Henry, your ass.
And he's not Derrick Henry.
Right.
Jeff, let's move on to your guy. This is a guy that I was high on, and I think he will bounce back. I got some stats that I'm going to spew out after you go.
You're going to need to, because I was thinking of you when I took him in the only league that I ever took him in, because he was sitting there. Drum roll, please. Speaking of Matthew Stafford, Allen freaking Robinson, who was just
God, no.
God.
You can give me a burrito with a bite out of it, and I'd give you Allen Robinson right now.
One bite.
That is my point. You can get Allen Robinson for nothing.
You can have him. Exactly. Yeah. He's this close to being on a waiver wire with me, man. He's that close.
He should be.
It makes me wonder, was it all of the quarterbacks or was it him? Did he lose it after he left where was he? Jacksonville? Did he lose it? After that one magical season he had with the Bears, what freaking happened to this guy? Because he does not look like he is right at all.
Said it all off season.
Yeah. I mean,
I was like, I don't understand it.
It's just nothing. So.
Yep. I just don't understand where this love for him came from.
Well, there's the real question. Where did it come from?
What was everybody watching? Is there a different Allen Robinson game tape that I wasn't aware of?
About 5 to 7 years ago, yes.
Right, that one season in Jacksonville, he's still hyped off of that one season in Jacksonville.
You look at his first 2 years in Chicago, and he was good. Last year, he wasn't good, and this year, he just been inefficient, and that is due to the fact that
it's a nice way
him
to
and
say
Stafford haven't been on the same page currently. Sean McVay has been consistent with the fact that they want to get him the ball. His targets have gone up or stayed the same each of the past weeks, 2, 5, 5, 6. And the thing that really, really interests me in Allen Robinson and the fact where you can get him for nothing is the fact that he is currently one red zone target behind Cooper Kupp on the team. But he only has 2 completions. Him and Matt Ryan, Matt Ryan's been looking his way when it comes down to in the end zone and in the red zone. When it's important, those targets that matter. And they just have been historically bad. And that's something that can only have positive regression. He's going to be able to score. They've just got to work this out. Like I said, I'm not super worried. 7 targets for 2 completions. Cooper Kupp has 8 targets for 6 completions. So when you look at that, it's not like Cooper Kupp's getting these crazy amount of targets in the red zone in comparison to Allen Robinson. They just haven't been able to capitalize on those, and I think that's something that's going to change. He's been on the field, and I think they're going to continue to get him a little bit more involved. He's not a guy I'm starting, but he's a guy I think you can get for literally nothing. It costs you nothing to get him.
Yeah, just the waiver wire priority.
Right.
That we could pay off more than anyone else you can get at this price currently.
That's another guy that everybody's afraid of missing out. And they're sitting there because we had sold ourselves, like Zach was saying, what tape have we been watching? But we thought, he's going to the Rams. And we saw what Odell did, and Odell's not there. He's going to put Allen Robinson is not Odell. He is not, never has been, never will be. He's a 9-10-year vet who's getting close to 30. And he doesn't have the skill set at this point of his age to be the receiver the Rams wanted. I think he would be a good 3rd or 4th receiver. He is not the number 2. And when does Van Jefferson get back?
That's my thing. That's what I was thinking. This dude is getting outscored by Ben Skowronek or whatever the hell his name is, man.
Right.
I'm like, what
Yeah,
the
yeah.
hell?
Your wide receiver core has to be just demolished if you're like even
Well,
considering starting Allen Robinson.
let's play devil's advocate with Allen Robinson just 1 second. So, at what point did the Rams say, "Hey, we screwed up," and they move him to a team like maybe Green Bay would take a flyer on him? And does that change your perception if he's moved off the Rams? Because I don't know. I mean, I can't imagine the Rams Van Jefferson gets back, and if they sign Odell, who's the guy they're going to get rid of?
Well, the Rams hasn't been setting the, Stafford hasn't been setting the world on fire either.
Right.
So
Right.
that whole thing is just
And he's just locked on to Cooper Cup.
yeah.
He hikes the ball and just looks for Cooper Cup instantly.
Yeah.
Well, we should know we were in trouble with the Rams when the running back issue started week 1. Like, I don't understand what happened to this team. Like, it is a nightmare for fantasy owners because you were looking for consistency and you thought you had consistency with the Rams, and it's the lineup is weird. Like, they can't decide who they're putting in what is the focus of the freaking offense besides Cooper Cup.
Skowronek.
Yeah, so I pulled up the league's red zone targets, and currently out of every player in the league, Allen Robinson is 6th in red zone targets.
And how many conversions?
He has 1.
There you go.
But that's
That's
a number
like-
that's going to get better. Those red zone targets are going to be there.
So
No,
is
It will.
because he's not going to be starting when Van Jefferson or OBJ are back.
Well, he'll be starting when Van Jefferson gets back. Jefferson will just take over Ben's role, except for fullback because Ben can apparently play fullback. Never seen a wide receiver play fullback before, but this guy seems to be able to do it. But yeah, I think Allen Robinson, you can get him for literally nothing. Maybe he's on your waiver wire, and he has
Waiver wire.
the highest upside of anyone you can get for nothing. The highest upside of anyone you can get for nothing right now.
If you're in a league with Zach and you have Allen Robinson, trade him.
I already have Allen Robinson in those leagues. Don't you worry. Don't you worry. It's going to happen.
Is this part of your tank strategy? Because that seems like it's great.
I mean, I have him in that league too. He's
How can I lose? Allen Robinson.
Allen Robinson's been in my starting lineup every single week. So
I think the stats you provided almost hurt your case for Allen Robinson. 6 targets, 1.
And
Seven
remind us
targets.
what your
7.
record
Oh my
is in that
goodness.
league.
my record in
That's
that
the
league
purpose. That's why he picked him.
is.
Well, I think we've all played now, right? Will you beat?
Yep, Will beat me last week.
So, Will, did you run the tables, or did you haven't played Jeff yet? I know you
He hasn't
beat me.
played yet.
I know you beat me.
Somehow I'm 2-2 with the Rocks.
Yeah, Will went into the past 2 weeks. He was 0-2, and then all of a sudden Will was 2-2.
Yeah, but
And
if you look at our game, it was 95-80.
Yeah,
It was
yeah.
the worst
Yeah, so
game
was-
in
yeah.
my
fantasy
starting
football.
lineup, I have Cam Akers, 1 point. Terry McLaurin, 2 points. Amari Cooper, 1 point. Allen Robinson, 1 point. George Kittle, 4. Evan Ingram, 2. Trevor Lawrence had a bad week, 7. So
I mean, if you
I'm-
look at
I'm
our
a get-
box score, it's like our number one running. Like I had Edmonds who got me 9. He had Hall got him 14. Then I had Pollard in who got 1.3 points, and he had Cam Akers who got 1.3 points.
yes, sir.
This week couldn't have been worse, and I won. So what do you know?
Wow.
Yeah, so you scored the second lowest in the league, looking at everyone's scores last week, and you won a game, Will.
It's all about the W,
Congratulations.
baby.
Wait,
Wow.
so Zach's the lowest.
It was literally the second lowest in the entire league, and he won.
The score was 98-72, and I think the next lowest score was like 150 or something crazy.
There's a couple 113s, so not
I
that
s-
far off, but
Started the season with Tua and Trey Lance, and I'm now trotting out Jacoby Brissett and Kenny Pickett. Things
Well, you
things come
beat
at
me
you
with-
fast, kids.
Yeah.
Life
You
life
beat me
happens
with
fast.
Jacoby Brissett.
it's okay. I played Bald
Yeah,
Guy this
I
week,
did.
and Bald Guy's been great. So 0-5, here we come. Let me get Robinson and Hall on the same team. Gonna be deadly next
In
year.
Jeff this week. Let's see.
Oh,
if I
it's you
can
and
swing.
Jeff this week.
Oh, so
Okay.
this is it.
I
Jeff,
don't
you
look good.
only need to put up 100 points and you'll get the dub. You can
that
roll
better
out
happen.
Drew Lock this week, and you will win.
They got him at 51% and me at 49. So we'll see.
Yeah, I got about like 3 guys that aren't even starting in my lineup, I think.
All right, so
Couple guys that might be out.
so you guys put any fab in for Teddy Bridgewater?
No.
Should I go pick up Teddy Bridgewater for
You
fun?
should.
I'll
You
put a
can't,
waiver
bro.
in. I'm put a waiver in for him right now.
There's no way you're gonna outbid me for my fab. Trust me.
I will. I'm putting all the money in.
You're gonna have
Thank
Byron
you for
Pringle
telling me
is-
that, so I can just go ahead and withdraw my stuff right now.
Yeah,
$194 for Teddy Bridgewater.
I got you beat.
Yeah, you got me beat. Okay, let's see it.
All
Let's
200.
see it.
All in.
I'm all in.
All
And
in.
he pulled some
I don't
stuff
know.
out of his wallet too. He was like, "What else? Got my deed to my house, my car. What else? Everything else."
Oh man. Well, let's go
I
2
already
gloves.
had-
Next
I
man up.
actually already had a waiver in for Teddy Bridgewater, and I didn't realize it. I had already thought about adding another quarterback to my roster before you guys had even brought it up.
Why? Yeah, I'm definitely up in the waiver right now. 200.
200. There you go. Your entire budget for this year, and you'll only get 100 added on to whatever you have next year. So this
So you
isn't
don't
like
only have 100 next year.
yeah. So did pretty much in this league, it's you get 200 to start the league off, and then you just get $100 added on every year after. So your
Oh,
waiver
so if
is
you
actually
save it,
yeah, your waiver is actually
rolls
part
over.
of your dynasty team. It's not something you just get reset every year. It's actually a part of the whole dynasty.
I like that.
So you might not want to put all 200 on Teddy Bridgewater. Let me have him for 194.
Nope. I'm gonna put in 205 now.
205 that you don't. You want me to trade you 5 fabs so that you can put in 205? Is that?
Can we trade Fab?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You can.
Oh,
So if you're,
you could buy
you
a
gotta-
player. Then.
yeah, pretty much.
Oh, okay.
Or if you're like on the fence about it, just be like, okay, give me 15 fab, and then we can go about our day.
There's nobody worth shit on the waiver wire.
Yeah, that's exactly why I'm spending all of my budget on Teddy Bridgewater.
Me
Who am I
too.
gonna pick up?
Me too.
Who am I
me
gonna
too.
pick up? Do you see the benches in this league?
Yeah. It's
Yeah,
horrible.
Byron
This
Pringle's
30
on my
person-
bench, so
Yeah, I have guys that aren't in the NFL, just hopefully
But-
they get signed by a practice squad.
I know I'm still holding on to Antonio Brown and 2 Giants receivers who have never played. I'm like, why do I have these dudes here? God dang. I got just about every Giants receiver there is.
Oh boy, sorry to hear
kind
that.
of
Exactly.
unfortunate. But with that being said, we're going to end the show here. I hope you guys enjoyed. I hope you learned a little something about Canadian Thanksgiving, celebrating on October 11th. Maybe you learned a little something about fantasy football too. Who knows? But Canadian Thanksgiving, October 11th. Apparently it's Columbus Day. Never heard of that, but whatever. It's fine. Thanksgiving.
Ironic.
Hope you guys enjoyed. And I hope you guys tune in again next week. We'll have another great show for you. And thanks for you guys for joining. As always, great to have you guys on.
All right, Zach. Thanks, man.
Thanks, Zach.